I lose my wallet a lot, to the point where my parents make fun of me. One thing I don't really lose though, for whatever reason, is my cell phone. It's smaller than my wallet, so that really doesn't make sense, but I don't know, I guess I keep better track of this. So I had this awesomely brilliant idea today that I'm gonna find a Google app and just put in all of my information, everything about me on my phone. I went to the Google Play Store and I found this really cool thing that lets me put in all my credit card information, lets me store all my passwords for my computer and my bank account. It has my social security card. I took a picture of it, put that in there, and my birth certificate, so then if somebody doesn't believe me that I'm not a high school student, I can prove it. It has a picture of my fingerprints. It really has everything about me. Who could ask for something better? This phone's called a smartphone for a reason, guys.
Alright. Tessa, I'm home! Come here! Oh, you're such a good girl. You're such a good girl. Did you miss me today? I had fun in lacrosse. I got some stuff to unload though, so I'm going to put you down, okay? So first, I need to get out my... Uh-oh. I have to get out my wallet and my phone. Uh-oh. I know that they're not in my car.
Alright, so in a little bit I'm going to explain how my introduction there connects to this lesson, but before I get to that, a few things to remind you about. First of all, remember that DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, is in the nucleus of every single cell, and DNA is a code that tells basically what an organism is. Every single thing about that organism is coded in DNA. That code stands for amino acids. We read DNA and we use the information from DNA to put together amino acids, monomers, and we string lots of them together in repeating units to make proteins, which is the polymer. Remember, monomers are like the beads, the polymer is the necklace. You take lots of amino acids and you string them together and you get a protein. So DNA tells you which amino acids are going to get strung together. Proteins then, when you take lots of them, are put together with some other stuff. We're not going to worry about that right now, but the proteins are put together with these other things, and that's how we get an organism. Now again, that's very simplified, but that's the gist of what happens. Some things that you need to know. DNA, if this is your life code, we need to protect it. We don't want to mess it up, because if we change just a few of those letters in your DNA, or let's say we change a lot of letters, you could be a completely different organism. Instead of being the human being listening to my presentation right now, I don't know, you might be a jellyfish. Or if we changed a couple letters, something might not have formed correctly and then you'd be dead. So we really need to protect your DNA. DNA is housed in the nucleus of the cell and it is not allowed to leave. So how does this connect to my video introduction? I put everything on my cell phone. Not really, that would be stupid. But just to get a point across, okay, I put everything on my cell phone. All that information was everything about me. I walked out the door, I left for the day, came back, and I lost my phone. Uh-oh, now I'm toast. All of my information is gone. So, same thing with DNA. DNA is everything about you, and we don't want it to leave the nucleus because if it does, there's a chance it's going to get lost or screwed up. So, remember, DNA is used to make protein. If DNA can't leave the nucleus, how do we get that information, that DNA code, out? Okay, so we have DNA in the nucleus, but we need to get the information out of the nucleus so we can make the proteins and assemble them. What do? Well, it's kind of like a library. When you go to the library, you have your reference materials, the dictionary, encyclopedias, and those materials aren't allowed to leave the library. Precious. Just like DNA is not allowed to leave the nucleus. If you need information from the encyclopedia or from the dictionary, what do you have to do in order to leave with that information? You need to copy it. we do the same thing inside of cells. We're going to take DNA and we're going to copy it using something called mRNA. mRNA is able to leave the nucleus. Just like if you copied the dictionary section that you need, hopefully not the whole thing, or an encyclopedia passage, you would be allowed to leave. The books would have to stay, just like the DNA has to stay. RNA. RNA stands for ribonucleic acid. It's basically a close cousin of DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. Out of the 4 biomolecules of life, carbs, lipids, proteins, nucleic acids, it's a nucleic acid. You can see it right in its name. Now, pause me, write down this information, and then listen to what I'm going to explain. The job of RNA is to copy genes. Genes are really small segments of DNA. Remember, you have 6 feet of DNA per cell. A gene is just a very small part of it that codes for a specific protein. So RNA's job is just to copy one small segment while it's inside the nucleus of your cells. Once it has that copy made, RNA is allowed to leave the nucleus. So it travels out to the cytoplasm, and there the information is used to make a protein. So take a look at this picture here. This is RNA. Pause me. Think about how is this different from DNA and what you've seen about DNA so far. And then come back and we'll continue to discuss the structure of DNA versus the structure of RNA. Our next step is to look at the actual structure of RNA. RNA is made out of nucleotides. So remember the P, S, and B? The P still stands for phosphate, the S is for sugar, but in this case the sugar is something different. The sugar is now ribose instead of deoxyribose. We still have 4 nitrogenous bases, and that's what NB stands for, except now we have one difference. We still have adenine A, guanine G, cytosine C, but now instead of thymine T, we have something else called uracil U. This means that I have to modify that picture I gave you a little bit. So if you look back at LO1 in your notes, you had the picture for DNA, where A and T go together, C and G. Notice how this picture is different. The U looks a lot like T. However, it's slightly different. It's different enough to be its own molecule. So now, in RNA, we do not have a T at all. A goes with U, C goes with G. Other things about RNA. Compared to DNA, RNA is very short because we're only using it to read small parts of DNA called genes. It's only made out of 1 strand. DNA was double-stranded, so this one is only 1. And DNA, we only have 1 type of DNA. There are 3 types of RNA. We have mRNA, rRNA, tRNA, and we'll talk about those later on. Here's your side-by-side comparison. Deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA, which is not allowed to leave the nucleus, and RNA, which is. RNA comes in and makes a copy of a small section of DNA. It's like you don't want to copy the whole dictionary, you only want to copy the section that you need. So RNA comes in and copies a small section of DNA called a gene. This process is called transcription. We'll talk about that in the next learning objective. It travels out of the nucleus to make a protein, and that process is called translation, and we will also talk about this later on. Please refer to your note packet for your next steps, and if you have any questions, please make sure that you ask and get them clarified.